Good afternoon. I'm Lou from Relayr, from Chicago. I get the great opportunity to spend some time with you today to talk about the risks of digital transformation, or are there really risks in digital transformation? Personally, I think digital transformation is an overused word, but we'll go through it. My goal is to provide some insights, maybe get you some education, see exactly what executives are thinking about. I have a great job because I get to talk to a lot of CEOs around the world and talk about digital transformation or just transforming my business. So if I do it right, you'll get some great examples, you'll get some opportunity to see the value proposition and where it actually pays off. And you'll get a little bit about how we do it at Relayr. I'll try not to make it too much of a commercial about Relayr, but since I was mentioned earlier today about being acquired by Munich Re, I'll give you a quick background on that. And we'll go from there. Doesn't work. What am I pointing at? There we go. So these are the topics I'm going to go after. Is it really risk-free? Some industries that are leading the way. I know it's after lunch, so I've got these big pictures, so hopefully it'll give everybody the opportunity to wake up a little bit. One approach that I know works, and when we talk about working, it means how do I actually bring value to a company, whether it's a manufacturing company that's trying to become more productive, or whether it's a manufacturing company that's trying to move into new business models. We'll talk about that. It works. I'll show you some of the results, and then as risk-free as possible. So let's start first with what's in the minds of the CEOs, because we typically talk to the C-levels of most companies, and in the minds of these CEOs that are trying to figure out the most important thing that they see is how do I stay relevant in my market that I'm serving. Now we get to talk to a lot of industry-leading companies, and they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying, how do I move to new business models, new innovation? How do I bring my product forward? You heard things today, or I heard things today, where products need to be smarter. Products need to be able to communicate so that you can take data and analyze it and make money out of it. So these are some of the things that CEOs look at as challenges. The biggest one is there a risk involved from a financial standpoint? And I can't remember which presentation it was earlier, but there were risks up there, and not only is it from a financial standpoint a risk, how much is it going to cost me to actually transform my business? How much is it going to cost me before I go out of business? But also people. A lot of people today, when they start thinking about transformation, or they start thinking about moving forward as a company because their shareholders are pounding on them for more and more money, a lot of them figure that they can just move forward with technology, but that's not the case. What the case is how do I bring my people forward as well? So these are some of the things that they're thinking about. Most of them have no digital strategy. Most of them don't even understand what it really takes to move their company forward. A lot of the manufacturing companies that we talk to have been manufacturing goods for 50 years, 60 years, and they've been doing it effectively over that period of time. The other thing too is, how about business models? Does everybody know what a manufacturing company typically, or an industrial-based company, is looking at in terms of business models? Number one, they're looking at things like, how do I become more productive? How do I make my plants more effective or efficient? And then the more progressive companies are saying, how do I actually create a new business model that moves me from a CapEx to an OpEx environment? How do I create new revenue streams? All very difficult questions and answers to deal with during this quest to transform your business. So if you think of this title, the risks associated with it, these are highly risky areas where if you don't get it right, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Last one is And most companies, I'm not sure down here about Bogota, but most companies that I've seen in Mexico and the United States, they have so much legacy infrastructure that it's incredible for them to try to unbury themselves from the old stuff and try to move forward with the new stuff. So those are just some of the things. Think of these for a second. I'm not going to read them all, but what's interesting is they're asking, how am I going to grow? How am I a disruptor? Am I a laggard? I mean, think of all these things. So when you're talking to industrial-based companies that want to transform their business at the C levels and mostly VP levels, these are the questions that are in their minds. These are the ones that, and I'll make sure you guys get a copy of all this, these are the ones that they ask about and think about every single day. And it's always about this side right here. They go, if I'm truly trying to be better at my manufacturing processes, I can deploy technology, a lot of different types of technology out there, and I can become more effective. If I'm trying to bring new business models to the market, one of the only reasons that they would do that is because they want to disrupt the market. There's no reason to bring a business model out unless you're truly trying to disrupt it. I was with a company 2 weeks ago in Atlanta. You may have heard of them. They're a company called Ream Corporation. Ream is a company that makes HVAC systems, heating and air conditioning type systems. 10 years ago, the CEO decided that I'm going to start transforming my product. I'm going to make my product smarter. And I'm going to take that data and I'm going to put it up in the cloud. But the problem is that the data's up in the cloud. They're a disruptor. They want to come out with new and innovative solutions for their customers. So one of the things they talked about, and I think this young lady here said it earlier, was, hey, you know what? Millennial market is huge. I want to go after the millennial market. What do I do? Well, I need to create a new business model, an as-a-service model. And everybody in here probably knows what an as-a-service model is, right? I'm seeing heads shaking. They wanted to come up with a new as-a-service model called hot water as a service. Because that market, that demographic of that market basically says, look, I don't really care about hardware or anything like that in my house. I'll just pay you a monthly subscription and I'll buy your solution. So these CEOs are starting to think about new and innovative ways of bringing solutions to the market that are not just CapEx driven. They're bringing new and innovative ways to deliver OpEx type solutions so that they can bring new subscription-based models to the market and make a heck of a lot of money at it. So when you talk to them, relevancy is key, disruption is key, innovation, am I continually innovating? And obviously, what are the expected results? So let me give you some examples. These examples happen to be our customers, but these are examples that happen to be major cities or companies that have actually are either going through a transformation today, a digital transformation today, and are actually reaping the benefits of a technology that we call digital transformation. This happens to be smart city lights. This happens to be the city of San Diego, California. The purpose here was to enable the city light infrastructure so that, number one, we can optimize our spend in terms of how much energy is being used, and we can also bring better security when people are in areas they shouldn't be in. But that's a great example. Here's another one here, elevators. Everybody knows about elevators. I bet you don't know that an elevator typically takes, on an annual basis, 6 to 7 service calls per year. And that's assuming that it's running the right way all the time. Well, those service calls, in most cases, those service calls are actually, 3 or 4 of those service calls are just going out and looking and finding out what the problem is. Most of them don't know what the problem is. So in the elevator business, what they're doing is they're actually putting technology in here to actually drive awareness and remote monitoring to predict when an elevator will not work. And the delta between the 7 annual visits now drives to 5, and each one of those visits costs $600-700. There's millions of elevators out there, and people are building new businesses with the elevator business. This one's a really cool one. This one's called Cold Air as a Service. You walk into any store that sells cold items, right? And inside those coolers, there's compressors, there's all kinds of operational assets that are making those things work. The people that actually put their product in there, the 7-Elevens of the world, the convenience store type companies of the world, actually can care less about that cooler. All they care about is that it's cold. And all they care about is the product that's in there is constantly moving. So the supply chain is constantly moving and making money. So this company called KPS actually has built a solution that connects to those coolers, and those coolers actually sit there and produce cold air. And they're monitored remotely to ensure that there's always a highest level of cold air in there, otherwise product goes and it's spoiled. And they're actually charging the customer a monthly fee for cold air. Interesting concept. Cables for robots, there's car manufacturers. These things here are enabling robots to continuously monitor a manufacturing line in an automotive plant. How about this? Peak power management. This thing's huge. This says not only is this an issue of trying to keep these things up and running, but when they're not running, it costs a lot of money to bring them back up to run. And the monitoring capability and being able to analytically look at the trends of how that thing's performing allows us to ensure that those things stay up and running all the time. Air heaters. Anybody ever see these things? Do you know what these things are? These things are for coal plants. In the U.S., there's with some movement going on right now, coal is not one of the most popular energy sources. These things are all over the place. They're all over the world. These things have to be up and running all the time. They had absolutely no technology in there so that when the fan actually breaks, it breaks. And there's a lot of broken parts inside there that cost a lot of money to repair. The company here is a Swiss-based company called Youngstrom, where we've gone in there and we've added a bunch of sensors to certain environments to enable us insights prior to something happening so that they can ensure that those things are up and running all the time. If something breaks in there, one of the motor parts, it costs $1 million a day for downtime. So these are companies that are actually disrupting the market today in terms of bringing transformation to their business. This last one here, you may know this company. This is a new customer of ours. It happens to be a cement company in Monterey. If anybody knows about the way a cement plant works, it starts from a quarry and it ends up in a bag. The process in between is extremely intense. Monitoring the opportunity in between there has saved companies like this significant monies in terms of bringing new productivities and better efficiencies so that they can produce more bags at the outset. So those are just some examples. This one's for you guys. This happens to be a new customer of ours. This is a company called Relayr. I don't know if you know of them. They make bathroom components that you would see in men's rooms, ladies' rooms, in our homes and things like that, the plumbing fixtures that connect the fixtures in a bathroom. One of the issues that is huge in the insurance industry is damage to water, or water damage to houses, to businesses, and so on. So Relayr came up with this idea that says, let me connect that device that's sitting there in the middle between the outside source and the inside source, and let me put some technology inside this box and tell me when certain things, chemicals, mineral deposits, a number of different things that occur, happen inside there to shut the water off before it actually damages the house. Insurance companies like yourselves love that because the claims are reduced big time. This company is working with a lot of the different insurance companies in the States where the value proposition for the company or for the actual resident is lower premiums on their homeowner bills. So this is a disruptive solution. Nobody's actually does this. And they've gone through a transformation where they thought they can actually do it themselves. I mean, this is pretty complicated technology. And they thought they can do it themselves, and we were engaged with them for a number of years. And they finally said, come on back in and let's use your platform to make this happen. But the key to this thing is pure disruption and what companies are doing today to enable the success of a transformational journey through disruption. So those are some examples. So don't wait, disrupt now, and a suggested approach. So I work for a company called Relayr, and Relayr is a technology company that just got purchased by Munich Re back in October. We're really happy about that. It's exciting. It's exciting to be part of the insurance community because now when you think about if you dealt with any technology companies that were out there, there's a lot of good technology companies out there, and when you look at what they bring to the table, they can add sensors, they can run analytics, they can connect to their professional services group, and what they really do is they connect an infrastructure together. But what happens is in the environment of companies, CEOs that are trying to transform their business, what happens is that they don't really care about the technology. Sure, you gotta have technology that works and things like that. But what they really care about are new business outcomes. They want to, if I'm planning on increasing my productivity by X, or increasing my efficiency in the plant by X, or I'm trying to create this brand new business model, what they care about is, what's it mean to me? Or what's the new business outcome associated with that? So when you look at the end results is to become predictable. I mean, we talked, or I heard earlier about being preventative. Preventative is okay, but when you become predictable, that means you can see things before they happen. And where the real payoff is in all this transformational stuff is having the insights forward to be able to look at that. So the way we do it is we actually start with a business outcome because we talk to CEOs. We talk to C-level people, we talk to operational people about their business. And we determine what those business outcomes are inside their business, that if they were gonna grow over the next 5 years, what were the keys to help them grow? We then match technology to that. How do we do this? Of course you need technology, right? You need technology to make the components smart. You need technology to pull the data from the systems. You need technology to analyze the data. You need technology to be able to interpret results and determine anomalies that are occurring before they actually occur. So we then match our technology with it, and then we execute with our expertise. The thing that's really unique about Relayr and separates us from everybody is the way we execute. So when a CEO says, I want to increase my productivity, and I can actually define how I'm going to do that, because I'm owned by an insurance company, the biggest difference is now we can back that with an insurability option. So think of this for a second. Company says I want to grow 3% from where I'm at today. That 3% generates $20 million worth of potential opportunity. We can defend that with a certain underwriting approach to ensure that. We actually insure it. The customer that goes through and deploys our solution, they actually gain that 3%. If they don't, they have an insurance policy in place when they send in a claim. If they only do 2.5%, we pay the difference. If we do 3% or 4% or 5%, then we take a piece of the action. It's a pure value-based approach, and the thing that differentiates Relayr, besides this capability, the thing that differentiates Relayr is the ability to deliver business outcomes that are insured to ensure the transformational journey is successful for businesses. It's not for everybody. A lot of big companies, multinational companies, can care less about an insurance play in one of their plants. They're probably insured themselves. but our target market is typically 100 million to 5 billion in size. Our target market typically relates to companies that are high in serviceability, their asset values are very high, and their service life is very long. Whoa. I'm standing over here. So let me give you some quick some results. All right. Remember, one of the things that people care about, and believe me, it comes down to these three things. There's a lot of stuff behind it, but when it comes to these things, if you're talking to industrial-based companies, you're talking about those things right there, delivering business outcomes. And all CEOs want to talk about is, like some of the things I mentioned before, they want to talk about new revenue streams. They want to talk about business model transformation. They want to move from a CapEx environment to an OpEx environment. And of course, they want to be more cost and effective in their plants from an improvement side. So this thing over here, our focus is different than every technology company. Our focus is based on business outcomes, as I mentioned before. Here's some examples. Oh, before I do that. In the end of the day, the question is where am I making money? I mean, shareholders are basically saying, how am I increasing my shareholder value to my business, or my CEOs are saying that. And those are the things that he's worried about. Transforming the business, products, enterprise workforces, staying relevant, disrupting new markets, maintaining dominance as an innovative leader. But probably the most important thing there in order to do this, and anything if you take away from this presentation today, if I'm truly going to transform, I have to become predictable. If I can't become predictable, then you will never transform your business. So here's an example. This is a coffee maker. Has anybody ever heard of the company called La Marzocca? La Marzocca is an Italian-based company. These assets you would see in high-end coffee shops where the experience is more important to the business owner. So that thing has to be up and running all the time. The value of that thing is about $50,000. It's really important that that thing stays up and running all the time. But what's even more important is that it produces the right kind of coffee, right? So one of the things that they took on their own is they said, look, we need to become more service related. We sell these big units, they install them, they're not smart, they're dumb. We need to figure out how we can get data out of these things, and we can now create a new business called aftermarkets, which they never did before. There's things in there like filters, there's things like there that are water chemistry, a lot of things that make coffee not taste good. And they became a customer of ours, and they've actually increased their revenue by 30%. They've obviously maintained leading positions, but you think about it for a second. If you know the Starbucks model, right, where there's thousands of these stores around that have these types of units inside them, the experience is so important. And when they say experience, they're talking about new customers. So because this technology, this is a defendable use case here by making that thing smart. And now it even product transformed where as these things come off the manufacturing line, all they have to do is when they bring them to the store, plug them in and provision them, and they're up and running, which is pretty cool. This thing, have you ever gone through an automotive plant? Have you ever seen the way cars are made? High-end cars, BMW, Mercedes, Audis. Inside the manufacturing process, what they do is they actually, there's a part of the process where they illuminize the components of the car. In the old way, they used to come up to a process, they used to send them off to a third party, then they'd reintroduce them back. There was a lot of transportation costs, there was some supply chain costs, there was also costs as it related to downtime of the assembly line. So there's a company that came out with this micro factory there, and that micro factory this is a classic model of a CapEx to OpEx. That micro factory is put inside the line of the manufacturing. So as the car is being produced, the products actually go through there, become illuminized, and on the back end of that thing, they continue on with the manufacturing process and outspits Audis and Mercedes and BMWs in Germany. The cool thing about this is that they can actually do that on site. The bad thing about it was the company that manufactured these things cost $1.5 million. And not everybody decides that they're going to just write a check for $1.5 million. So this small company called Alluvation, who makes these microfactories, goes to a third-party finance company and says, look, create some finance for me because I don't want this thing, I can't sell it. I can't sell it, so what I need you to do is finance it, and then I'll put this on site at my customers, and for every part that goes through there, I'll end up charging them a subscription fee for it. It's the most incredible as-a-service model you can ask for because it deals with technology, obviously, and we monitor this whole thing. It deals with throughput, so we have a business outcome that says it has to perform as X. If it doesn't, then there's insurability options that are associated with it. It has to be up and running all the time because manufacturing or automotive assembly lines never stop, all right, unless they're to do a retrofit or a rebuild. And by the way, for everything that goes through that thing, I want it to automatically send an invoice to the customer, in this case, BMW, which is this example here. I'm going to send a billing invoice to them so that they pay me. So here's the thing that's cool about this. They went from a CapEx model to an OpEx model. They're no longer building these things in stock because they can't afford to build them in stock. They're too expensive. So they build them per order. They, as a service to whoever it is that they're going to use in the automotive case, as I mentioned. And what they did is they increased the demand for the car manufacturer over 40%, because it's now in-house, it's not going out of house. I don't have any issues as it relates to transportation issues or anything like that. Everything's done in-house. Relayr is monitoring that thing, that little thing that's on the side there is monitoring that thing that says it has to be at a certain temperature, it has to run at a certain a certain speed that's going through there, and it has to produce certain things. And because of those outcomes, because of the monitoring and its produced outcomes, it's insured to ensure that those things never stop, which is an incredible story. So the point of this thing is, on the previous couple slides, you saw that thing that says technology, and you saw services and insurance and finance. That's the Relayr model. The business outcome wasn't that I was going to go build these things. It was going to cost me $1.5 million to try to go sell them. The business model was, I want to make this thing available to companies and make it easy for them to buy from me, which is a subscription-based business. So that's an example there. The elevator example I sort of told you already. There's millions of elevators around the world. In Europe, in the US and China, the companies that are actually building systems for this will have plenty of business to go after. And we actually at Relayr, we've actually classified this as a category for us, so that people just call us up and say, send me another 10,000 units for elevators in China or in Germany or Milan or the UK or the US. But this is another defendable case as well. And then the last one is the GROE. GROE is already starting to reap the benefits of this model. Insurance companies are starting to reap the benefits of this model. And pretty excited about this as a defendable use case. So I still believe that transformation is very risky. There's a lot of moving parts in a business, a lot of things that companies have never even thought about as they're trying to transform the business processes in their business. But what's interesting is there's now technologies, obviously here's one of them, but there's other technologies out there that can help companies transform, right? They can help companies bring technology to the table, and they can help companies deliver these technologies. It happens to be only us that can actually insure it and finance it, because and because of that, these are some of the business models that we actually bring to the table for customers. So when companies are developing an as-a-service model, for example, and they want to do remote monitoring on an elevator, or they want to do it on whatever it may be, these are examples of new business opportunities or new business models that they're making money with. And it's all backed by our parent, which is Munich Re. In the States, there's a company called Hartford Steam Boiler who reports into Munich Re. That's what we get out of this business, where we can create safety nets for as-a-service models. We can guarantee business outcomes, which is amazing. And when we do projects, we can also ensure the completion of a project. So most of these projects are millions of dollars, because as you're transforming your business, it's not a small and easy task. There's a lot of money involved with it, and there's a lot of technology that has to support the transformation of that. And then when you close the loop with bringing financing and insuring to the table, it just opens up the market for so many more companies that can be successful in their transformational journey, which is where I think risk becomes less. So I've said a few things about Relayr, but I never really introduced Relayr. This is Relayr. We're headquartered in Berlin. We have offices in Munich and in Poland. I'm responsible for the Americas, which is my office is in Chicago. And we're totally IoT driven. We've got about 250 people now. And obviously we're part of HSB. So I wanted to finish up a little bit earlier if that was okay. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. And thank you very much for the opportunity.